All right. Well, welcome everybody. My name is Amy Smith. I'm the new chair of the Urban Forestry Commission, so bear with me on matters of protocol. We'll see how it goes. So I believe, do we introduce ourselves first and then move on? Okay. Well, then let's go around the room and introduce ourselves. I'll go ahead and start. So again, Amy Smith, chair of Urban Forestry Commission. Sharon?
Sharon Summerall, Urban Forestry Commission, PRC representative.
Thank you. Ed?
Ed Macy, Urban Forestry Commission.
Patrick?
Patrick Gilbert, Vice Chair, Urban Forestry Commission.
Cecil?
Cecil Waffle, Urban Forestry Commission, and welcome Kim Roney.
Yes. Dawn?
Hi, Dawn Chavez, Executive Director of Asheville Greenworks, Tree Protection Task Force, and Urban Forestry Commission.
And I say Steve jumped in. Steve, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, Steve Hendricks, Urban Forestry Commission, and welcome Kim.
Kim, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Kim Roney, Asheville City Council, Liaison to the Urban Forestry Commission. Thank you all for your service and your volunteer efforts.
Thank you. Let's have city staff. Nancy?
Hi, I'm Nancy Watford. I'm the Site Engineering Coordinator and Urban Forestry Commission Liaison.
Thank you. Haley?
Hi, my name is Haley Mahoney. I am a planning technician with the City of Asheville, and I am this staff assistant for the Urban Forestry Commission.
Thanks. Chris? Can't hear you.
I just said Chris Collins and I'm muted when I knew what stuff was. Chris Collins, I'm the division manager for site planning and development, zoning and environmental engineering and development services.
Thanks. Vidila?
Hi, this is Vidila Slavica with Planning and Urban Design. Thanks.
Ben?
Thank you. Ben Woody, Director of Development Services, and congratulations, Madam Chair, and I'm sure you'll do a great job.
That's very nice. Thank you. And Mark?
Hey there, Mark Foster, City Arborist, Public Works Department. Welcome, Councilwoman Roney.
All right. I believe that's everyone. Did I miss anyone? Go ahead and speak up. All right. Excellent. Well, then thank you all for being here. I'm excited to get going. So first we need an approval of the minutes. So we'll have to do a roll call vote. I'll call everyone's name. And I'm going to go in the order that we are on the agenda. So hopefully we'll keep the confusion to a minimum on our voting. So approval of the minutes. We need a motion.
I think you need a motion. Yeah.
I'm getting there.
Move to approve. I move to approve the minutes of the previous meeting.
I second.
All right. Thank you. So we will vote. First up, Patrick.
Aye.
Steve.
Aye.
Ed.
Aye.
Sharon.
Aye.
Cecil.
Aye.
Dawn.
Aye.
And I vote aye. So that passes. And I don't see Perrin. All right, let me know if he jumps in. I don't see him. All right, well, then we can move right on. So we don't have any alternative compliance today. So we have a chance to talk about more of our regular business. Hey, real quick, I see Ricky jumped in. You want to introduce yourself, Ricky? You're muted.
Yeah, sorry. Ricky Hurley with City of Asheville Zoning.
Thank you. All right. So I guess next would be public comment. So Haley, did you want to read the public comments? Or did you want me to? I didn't pull it up.
One moment, please. Sorry, we just had someone trying to get into the meeting, but I didn't recognize who they are. And now there's echoes. Let's see. I'm technical difficulties. Hold on one moment, please. Because the echo that I can't seem to figure out where it's coming from, I'd recommend somebody else maybe try reading the comments, please.
Gotcha, no problem. Nancy, what, do you have something? Gotcha, no problem. Nancy, what, do you have something? All
No,
right.
you want to read them? Go ahead.
I did not print out or pull up the comments. If you have them, that'd be handy. Otherwise, I can pull it up.
I do.
While you're doing that, hey, Perrin, I see joined us. Do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. Sorry for tardiness over here. This is Perrin Young. This is my second year with the Urban Forestry Commission. I'm glad to see everybody. Happy New Year.
Thank you. All right, so Nancy, were you able to get them?
Yes. So we had 2 comments. Audrey, Odds Cafe, Dear Tree Commission, each morning. Can y'all hear me? Can y'all hear me all right?
Yeah, sounds good. Yes, I hear you.
Okay. Each morning I look out my window, kitchen window, to see the sun coming over the trees planted by the neighborhood over 30 years ago. For 16 years, I've enjoyed this view and come to see this neighborhood as home. These trees were planted directly on the property lines of the 3 small single-family homes, including mine, that butt up against a city-owned property on Ashland Avenue. This land that was taken during the 60s, 70s via urban renewal was slated as a buffer park between the neighborhood and the ever-growing downtown. There's even a deed restriction on this land marking it as a park. I recently discovered that the city is ignoring the deed restriction and planning to sell it for $1 to the Haywood Street congregation to develop into a 4-story apartment complex. Due to the narrowness of this 1-acre lot, as well as the steep slope, the trees will have to be removed or will die, along with the other trees farther up the slope. This neighborhood would be losing so much more than just a potential buffer park. Please help us maintain the purpose of this land, help us save these trees, and convert this piece of land into a useful, beautiful green space for the many residents of the South French Broad and South Slope. Downtown is about to blow up with new condos and apartments from other developments already underway. We would be doing this city a disservice to allow it to become overrun with apartments from other developments already underway. We would be doing the city a disservice to allow it to become overrun with cement. Art installations throughout the city are beautiful. However, they'll never replace the service of beautiful trees, walkways, the birds that are attracted to the area, and the general all of nature's art. Thank you for listening. Concerned and very worried, Audrey Bloomquist.
Okay. Are we able to discuss the comments, or do we just read them all and then have discussion, if any?
The other one, well, hold on. The other one's short that I have. So this thing came in today, or yesterday. And it's, as we continue to evaluate the need for maintaining and increasing our canopy, are native edibles being considered? They are a valuable resource for wildlife and would be helpful in bringing people back to the origins of our food as we look to eat things that are less processed. I look forward to hearing from you, Jillian Wolf. And I can respond back to her after the meeting. Those were the 2 comments. Yes, open to discussion.
All right, thank you. So first, I think we should talk for a moment about the Ashland Avenue project. There is a city website set up dedicated to this project. So I'm not sure how looped in everyone is yet. It was new to me, and this website and information was new to me. This is the parcel on Ashland Avenue. Go ahead, Ed.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, I read the deed restriction on this property just last week, and it came to me through the Ravenscroft Reserve folks, if it's the same piece of property. And it does indeed have a restriction on it. From what I understand, there's something underneath the ground that makes it toxic for development, and the restriction is in a land transfer from, I believe it was Housing and Urban Development, so from a federal agency to the city of Asheville. And again, if this is the same piece of property on Ashland Avenue, it certainly does have a deed restriction on it that prohibits development.
From what I just read, the original deed restriction that was written up with that property is actually not valid. There was an error. Well, there are two parts. Part of it was an error in attaching that parcel in a restriction to Martin Luther King Park, and that was an error. And the other deed restriction that was on the actual deed was there was a piece that expired in 1993. So from what I could tell, on that particular parcel, there are currently no deed restrictions. We may need more updating from the city on that, but that's what I could determine from the documents that they sent over. Now, this project also was exempted from the city moratorium on development for parcels that had been historically taken during urban renewal. If you guys heard about that moratorium, this project was already under development or discussion when that happened, so it is exempt from that as well. So they are proceeding with public comment and discussion on this. The next piece is January 26th. There is a City Council Affordable Housing work session that will be on YouTube with no public comment, however, so you have to get comments in otherwise. And then February 23rd, it is currently slated for a vote on the sale of the land piece. So any other comments for now or questions that we can try to clear up?
So can we get clarification from the city on the status of that land with respect to the restrictions?
Yeah, I think we can ask for that. Does anybody here have any more information?
Not other than what Nikki Reed and they've provided to us, which was the email that shows the deed restrictions that they've gone in and checked to make sure that it wasn't part of that deed restriction.
Yeah, from what I could tell, there are not currently any active restrictions on that parcel. Now, however, you know, if there's other issues with both. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. Nikki to this individual and a few other of the neighborhood folks as well.
Okay.
So a question then for Chris Collins, this property will fall under the Canopy amendment?
Right. Yeah,
exactly.
It should.
Well,
So
there
we
are development triggers, right? So when they build something new, it will trigger the Canopy apartments.
So we should reflect that in a reply back to whoever made that comment.
Yeah, so if there's many steps to this, they have to sell the land first and approve the development of the housing. So if all of those steps go through, then it would fall under the ordinance, in which case we could, you know, see what kind of plans they have for their landscaping. All right. Any other comments right now? I think we'll keep this open so that we can continue to see how it progresses, and I'll let everybody know if we find out more.
A question would be if we have any ability to review it at some point.
It'll go through the regular like TRC and zoning processes.
Okay,
so,
assuming going through that process, then we would have be able to review it, but through TRC. But would it come to the commission at all? I'm not sure.
Only if there was
Right.
an alternative, compliance issue.
Right.
As we can, as a, commission, choose to take other action, or as private citizens, of course, we can submit public comment as well.
Right.
All right.
Okay.
On the question of native edibles, I know that native species are a priority for the city, and we've been working a lot. I know Greenworks has worked a lot with edibles overall. Do we have any other push in that way? I know that that is something we've been working on. I assume, Nancy, that's what you'll tell her, is that it's in our plans. Do we have native edibles in our recommended species list? I'm assuming that's yes.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, I thought so. Okay, cool. Well, then I know that's something that we've been pushing with parks, and I know Greenworks has been working on that with public housing as well.
Yeah, and Greenworks also has edible species that they include in their tree giveaways.
Awesome. Thanks. Well, then maybe Nancy, you could add that in the reply. All right, thank you. Anything else on those two public comments? All right. Well, then we'll move on to old business. So first up was urban reforestation and environmental justice. We had talked a couple times previously about working with Greenworks specifically, and working in ways that we as a commission can be more proactive in particularly reforesting areas that were noted in the NASA Urban Heat Island study, as well as other parts of the city that are lacking canopy, and anywhere that we can be proactive in environmental justice around those issues. Did we have any new information on that, Dawn, from Greenworks?
Greenworks has recently received a grant through the Gannett Foundation. They had a campaign called A Community Thrives, and a national grant making program. And so we received $50,000 to work on urban forestry issues, especially in marginalized communities and those that have suffered impacts from urban renewal and redlining. So we'll be working with communities to plan out what tree plantings they would like to see in their neighborhoods. We have a strong partnership with the Housing Authority and have built up relationships over the years with residents in the different public housing communities. So we'll be going through those channels to get a participation and permission to enter those communities and work with them. Yeah, so over the next year, we'll be giving away trees, doing some targeted tree planting and tree giveaways in low wealth communities and areas that have little tree canopy and high land surface temperatures with this grant, and we're also seeking other grant monies to do that. In November, we held a community tree planting in the South Side neighborhood and planted about 35 trees there. That I don't think it included any fruit trees, but shade trees throughout the neighborhood.
All right, thank you. So as far as our push in this area as a commission, I think we still have an open working group on this. So I know Dawn and Perrin and myself, I don't recall, sorry if there was anyone else in that group, but we can continue to have the discussion. Ed, thank you. Continue to have discussions around this and see what else we can do as a group to support Greenworks and move forward. Go ahead.
Yeah, Dawn, can I mention the discussions we're having with American Forests? We didn't really follow up on that, but I think that fits in with some of this committee work.
Sure, yeah, I'd love to hear that.
Yeah. So Dawn brought to my attention late last year that American Forests, which is the nation's oldest tree conservation organization, is developing a system for it's what they're calling their environmental equity index system, and they're embarking on a project to score 500 cities across the United States. I think across North America. They might be including Canada as well. And so I reached out to their president of urban forestry programs, who's somebody I've worked with in the past, and asked them to use Asheville as a pilot city. And his reply was that basically Asheville is going to be included along with the other 500 cities, and they're going to be developing indexes by the middle of this year for all 500 cities. But he added that it might be worthwhile to have a discussion with them, for our committee to have a discussion with them to talk about the communication phase of this index once it's rolled out. So, and my question to all of you is this something worth pursuing, or should we just wait and see what happens?
I think it's worth pursuing, certainly. I think, yeah.
I mean, I have the sense that it might help us tell a story if we have American Forest behind us, because they have some people that are pretty good at communicating, and they might be able to help us highlight some things. So but what I can do is reply back to Ian and tell him that we're available to have a call within the next month or so.
Yeah, I think that would be great. It would be useful for us to be a part of the conversation, and obviously to see what our score or index is. I think that'd be great. So great. We'll keep us posted on that.
Okay.
And Amy, if I may, on this topic, the last I checked in, one of the aspects we talked about on this front was finding a way to incorporate this initiative into the ongoing discussion about reparations in Asheville and in Buncombe County. Last I checked in about this, and Kim Roney's on the call today, Kim was telling me that there hasn't been a whole lot that's happened in terms of a point of engagement for the public to interface with on the reparations discussions so far. Is that still the case? Is there anybody on the call who can bring us up to date on sort of where that process is at and when we could expect to interact with it? City or county?
Amy, do you mind if I jump in here? This is Kim.
No, absolutely. Please go ahead.
I'll share that at this point, the council is working with staff on what the next steps are for a reparations commission. And so that group will be, to my understanding, that key point of public engagement. And I'm happy to update this group when we have more information.
Thank you, Kim.
Yeah, thank you. I think that would be a great place for us to overlap if there's a commission and work that we can do to help with that. Yeah, that'd be great. All right. Any other thoughts or comments on urban reforestation and environmental justice? All right. So next up is Hog Creek Elementary School Reforestation Project, and Patrick has an update.
Yes, first I apologize for the lateness in getting everybody the update on this project. I just got the proposal from Buncombe County Schools on Friday. I've explained this project before in previous meetings, so I won't go into the background of that. On Friday, we did get two options from Buncombe County Schools. Option one is to start this project this year for 9,600 square feet of the reforestation area that we have proposed. But Buncombe County would only be able to pay about $12,000 of that cost. And according to the estimate put together by Asheville Greenworks, the cost of that project would be a little over $23,000. Option two would be to wait until winter, spring of 2022, after the second phase of this construction project is completed and all the construction equipment has left the scene. And then we would get started, and Buncombe County Schools would pay $24,000, which would be the full freight of this project. The Urban Forest Commission Working Group on this decided to recommend option 2 for several reasons. One is which, of course, Buncombe County would pay the full cost of the project. And number 2, we're hoping that by then, or even before then, that the pandemic restrictions will be lifted and Asheville Greenworks would be up and running full force and would be in a better position to marshal all the forces that it needs behind this project. And that is the recommendation of the working group. I don't think, Madam Chair, that there needs to be a formal vote on this unless there's some kind of objection. And with that, I'll answer any questions that anybody has.
Patrick, I have a question. I noticed it was mostly poplars. Do we know why poplars are the predominant tree going in? Was there a collective decision on this?
That was the proposal that was put together by Ed Macy and Eric Bradford, the program director of Asheville Greenworks.
Yeah, Sharon, most of the tree species have only been identified as overstory trees and understory trees, but where we called out poplars was in the parking lot area, and the whole intent was to create an allele of shade trees similar to the effect that you have at Biltmore House with, there's a lot of room there for poplar trees to mature, and they make a pretty nice presence, and it seemed like perfect growing conditions for them. So that was the intent.
Yeah, I just was looking for more, varied story because I didn't know where they were going to go.
Well, the poplars are just in the parking lot.
They're in the parking lot?
Yeah, the other reforestation areas would be a mix of overstory and understory species, and the intent there is to try to recreate the adjoining forest systems, so there'd be and actually continue a trail that's existing through the rest of the schoolyard along the side of the cemetery to the parking lot.
Yeah, I walk that a lot. It's getting heavy duty destroyed at the moment. But
right.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. That's all I wanted to know.
Thank you, everyone, for the work on that. It was a well worked out proposal.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. And Madam Chair, I want to thank you and Ed Macy and the Urban Forestry Commission, Eric Bradford and Samantha Truman from Asheville Greenworks for all your work and commitment on this project.
Thank you, Patrick, for all of your work and your communications with the Buncombe County Schools. So I think that's a good partnership that we've started, and hopefully something we'll keep going with, and that'll lead into some stuff we're going to talk about later with collaborations. Any other comments on that particular project? If anyone wants to walk the site or anything, let me know. We can head back out there again anytime. All right. Then we will move on to enforcement, tracking, and training of the tree canopy preservation ordinance. Obviously, we know this is a high priority for everyone in the room. Nancy, did you want to kick us off with where we're at with that?
All right, so we are working with Greenworks to do staff-specific training. I need to get with Dawn on that. But I think we're looking at it fairly shortly. And then with tracking, let's see, we have currently the elements that are in there is how much area is preserved, how much tree canopy area. So preserved, how much is plant, and how much is planted. And I think the total requirement, or I guess maybe it's fee in lieu. But those are the 3 parameters that we are tracking in the system now. We haven't developed the report for that. I have to work with one of our other staff persons to create that report. But, we're working on that. So then once the report's created, I can update you at any time, at any given frequency as to where we are with things, for what periods of time. But so that's really it. If there's some other parameter that you guys want to know or want us to track, let us know so we can go ahead and start that in the system.
Nancy, I'm most focused on the physical protection of trees on sites that have been permitted under this new system. And I'm just wondering how much of that is really happening at this point. For example, there in my neighborhood, it appears to be a subdivision. It's 3 lots that were once one lot that have been subdivided into 3 building sites at the corner of Waynesville and Millage. And trees have been left on the property, but they're not being physically separated from the construction activities. So I have some pictures of heavy machinery moving in and around the trees and compacting the soil in an area where that type of activity just doesn't have to happen. They're moving the equipment just to temporarily store it on the site. So I'm wondering, is the city waiting until the training to start implementing this in the field, or are there standards for physical tree protection in place yet?
Nancy, I can help with that if you'd like. So there are a lot of factors we can dig into that once an activity is occurring. Tree protection, fencing, tree protection should be up. That is our expectation. That's what we're looking for.
Okay.
And Chris, I would add one more thing. And we'll take a look at that particular development. But remember that the permit for development would have had to have been applied for after the adoption of the tree protection ordinance. So Chris, that's another thing. If that was in the queue before, the permitting was in the queue before the ordinance was adopted, then it wouldn't apply. So anybody that had a permit applied for before the ordinance effective date would not be subject to the tree protection ordinance.
Great.
So it's going to take a little bit of time.
My question was more general in nature, and I just used that specific site as an example.
Got you. And thank you, Ed. And that's something that, we need to find a good metric for tracking the success of how we're protecting those trees. So that's a good thought.
Sharon, did you have something? Go ahead.
Chris, what is the state exemption? Do you have a number I can look up? Is that particular to rolling equipment over grounds or grading, or what's the exemption you're citing?
So I'll put a link in the chat for you guys here in a minute. Once I can track it down, I have it pretty handy. But there are state laws surrounding subdivisions and what is a subdivision and what's an exempt plat. So there's some specific scenarios in which we can't really tell them what to do with what they're doing. One of those is like and my brain's escaping me, so I can't give you exact numbers, but if the parcel's of a certain size and they're only creating 3 lots out of that parcel, then they have an exempt plat. And like I said, I'll pop a link in there, but there's a couple of kind of specific scenarios that some things will fall into. But when they don't, then tree protection would need to be identified on that subdivision, would need to be recorded with the plat. And when building permits were finally obtained for that, we would be looking for tree protection measures.
Okay, good. Yeah, because that would be good to know with the state exemption, because I get a lot of emails about, what is and isn't. So if I've got some more information what the state allows, then that gives me some knowledge. So thanks for sending that.
Sure.
So it sounds like, obviously, we'll collect the metrics of canopy preserved, planted, and fee in lieu. If anyone can think of anything else that we would like to track right off the bat, let's get that to Nancy. And then obviously we want to be updated monthly for these meetings. do we want to be updated more often than that at this point? Anybody have any requirement for more than once a month? Okay, well then let's just shoot for that. Maybe when the agenda comes out would be our goal. So having that information to prepare for the meeting. And then the other piece of this, so Nancy touched on the education piece. So I'm going to work with Dawn as well on the training that we'll give to the city. And we're also going to extend that training as much as we can to the community, starting with developers and home builders. And then obviously we need to talk about, and we'll see how this goes along, it's going to be a work in progress, but how to implement the fee in lieu money that we collect. So at this point, obviously we don't have anything to go on that I know of. So it's going to be something that we're going to have to work out as this comes up. But does anybody have any thoughts at this point about anything wrapped around that ordinance or the fees? Nope. Jump in if you have anything. All right. Any other comments on this process with the ordinance? All right. I don't anticipate this leaving our agenda anytime soon. So we're going to revisit this, you know, every meeting, every chance we have. So as things come up, we'll address them. Oh, I did want to add into that. I don't think we have it anywhere else. The heritage trees provision, we're still working on having that in our mind, that it's something we want to add in. So just to put it out there that we're still working on getting heritage trees protected or incentivized for protection within the ordinance, but we'll have to kind of see how this goes and at what point we're able to modify it. So anything else? All right. And then we're moving on to the mission statement. So we're still working on it. Steve and Perrin, get back to me. I think last was the draft that I sent to you both. So if you have anything to add to that, we'll get it back. And I'll take another look as well and see if there's anything we can touch up on that. And then we'll bring it back to the group. Any comments on mission statement?
Yeah, I think we batted some ideas around at the end of last year, but we didn't really tie a bow on any of them. And I think we need to just kind of touch base again and refresh the conversation and go back over some of those ideas.
I agree. It looks like Steve agrees. So we'll get together as a working group on it and bring this to the commission. Let's try to have something to bring back by next meeting or by our retreat, whichever will come first. So if that's agreeable, let's try and get that done. All right. So then, Perrin, do you have an update for us on the open space amendment and where we're at with that?
I do. Thank you, Amy. Things have changed a lot in our stance towards the open space amendment since the last time we visited this topic. As everyone, I think everyone would remember, we had initially passed a motion opposing the open space amendment as drafted. And subsequently, as we continued conversations with city staff, some conditions seemed to change in a way that caused many members of the commission to issue a letter sort of saying, well, we've done what we could do here. However, we've continued to pursue the topic with the city. And the good news is that we had a really productive meeting with Todd Olikachaney. And I think Ben Woody might have also been a part of that meeting. Apologies to anyone who's being left out here who was in that meeting, because it's been long enough that I actually don't remember everybody who was in the meeting. But in any case, we had a productive conversation. I felt as though, and for those of you who were there, chime in what your sense was, but my sense was that the city was making a good faith effort to hear our concerns, to attempt to see if there's an agreement that could be reached and a middle ground that could be reached in the way of a compromise or accommodating the concerns that we are raising. My sense was that Todd was looking at this with a fresh set of eyes in the interest of compromise. Other things have other actors within the debate over the open space amendment, such as CAN, such as SACE, continue to be really interested in this topic. These folks also were under the impression that there was no chance for any further discussion on this. And so similarly sort of said, well, we did what we could do here. So suffice it to say that discussions are ongoing. Todd just reached out to us the other day, maybe yesterday, to set up our next meeting to discuss what the city's staff's conclusions have been based on our previous discussion. I'm optimistic that we're going to hear some good news about changes that we asked for. And so all that said, the official formal position of the Urban Forestry Commission is still that we are opposed to the open space amendment as drafted. That is the motion we voted on and passed unanimously. I think that's beneficial in the sense that because there still is time and goodwill, I hope, to continue looking for a solution to our concerns, our primary concerns, those 4 concerns that we raised in our motion, that positions us well to continue negotiating with city staff. So I don't have any news as to the particulars of what the staff has agreed to or is willing to agree to do. And I look forward to hearing about that. I think it might be next week when Todd's asked about having a meeting, or perhaps the week after. So we should have substantive news about potential changes that city staff is willing to make on the open space amendment soon, I hope. And I'm looking forward to hearing about that. But suffice it to say, discussions are ongoing, negotiations are ongoing. The Urban Forestry Commission is still standing by its opposition to the OSA as drafted and pushing for beneficial changes that will better align the goals of Asheville, the city of Asheville, and the UFC to protect and expand and restore the urban canopy in Asheville with the pending changes to the open space amendment. So that's my summary. If anybody else who was present wants to chime in with anything else, I'd love the help.
Go ahead, Patrick.
So, that's a great update from Perrin, and I too feel optimistic that we can make some more substantive changes in the proposed open space amendment. I think, and I guess we'll find this out at the next meeting, but it's not clear to me what state that amendment is in currently, whether it's the same state essentially that the Department of Planning and Urban Design submitted to the City Council, or whether they have decided to go back to the drawing board and start all over again. In regards to the motion that the Urban Forestry Commission voted on opposing that open space amendment, if the status of that amendment is unchanged at this point from what was presented to the council, 2 of the 4 points that were in the motion that we voted on are already in that proposed amendment. The other 2 were rejected for legal reasons. So I'm not sure where our motion then stands, and whether we should keep the motion opposing the open space amendment for now, or whether we rescind it and then wait to see how the discussions go, and then consider our position on it again.
Well, I would just I would add, Patrick, to your comments that I wouldn't characterize our demands as being rejected for legal reasons. I think that explanations have been given for a reluctance to do what we have asked that referenced legal staff, which is different from saying that our demands have been rejected for legal reasons. I think it's been quite opaque and quite untransparent, the way in which the arguments have been raised about why the city is reluctant to go along with the things that we have called for. So I would offer a friendly revision to your comments. You are echoing a lot of what was said by city staff, but what I have found through digging through this is that it's not as cut and dried as it was presented to us about, oh, we can't do this for legal reasons. It's more, we would prefer not to do these things. And somebody in legal said that we would prefer not to do it. So preferring not to do it and not being able to do it by law are two completely different things. And so I want to keep those things straight. I would advocate for maintaining the status quo, which is UFC opposition to the open space amendment as it stands, particularly in light of the fact that we don't know if any changes have been made so far. We might as well maintain our position and keep our options open.
I don't have a problem with that, but I would ask, Madam Chair, if Eric Edgerton is in the meeting.
I don't think he's here today.
Okay. All right. Well, that's unfortunate because he would be able to give us a better sense of whether the explanation that we got from planning and urban design was, as Perrin said, merely a preference from the legal department, or if the legal department really has a legal position on that. So I think that it just sort of a friendly suggestion to Perrin that maybe we suggest to Todd that the next meeting that maybe Eric Edgerton be there, and we can get some of this legal issues, whether it's preference or a real legal objection, off the table, and we can move on.
Patrick, I just checked and Eric was included in the meeting invite that Todd sent out today. So I don't know how he responded, but he was invited.
Good. Thanks, Ed.
Yeah, and I would just add the city attorney who was present in the meeting, the arguments that he raised were about logical inconsistencies in the arguments that have been raised against the open space amendment. So he actually wasn't making legal arguments in our last meeting that we had with city staff. He's a lawyer, but he was talking about how our arguments weren't consistent with other arguments.
So if I can sum up, it sounds to me like the working group still has work to do, so we can keep it open. Go ahead, Kim, if you had a comment. Kim, okay.
Sure. Just for just like a timeline information, it's my understanding that the amendment to the UDO regarding open space requirements has been continued until May 25th. So because this group meets monthly, there are more opportunities to speak to this matter before it comes to a council decision.
Thank you. Yes. So perfect. Along those lines, then it sounds to me, if everyone agrees, that the working group should keep working on it. And as far as our motion that we passed in opposition, I personally agree that at this point, we don't need to make any change to that until we have more concrete information, more detail from the city about what's actually going to go to council, at which point we can decide, and we have some time to do so. Does that sound like the way we'd want to proceed?
I'm okay with that.
Okay. Well, then I think we keep the working group intact and definitely have your meeting that sounds like is in process to be planned for the next steps. So, Nancy, did you have a comment?
Yes, sorry, small interruption. So just so that you members and the public are aware, we are having some streaming issues. And the video is currently paused on YouTube and public input. However, the audio is working, so we will proceed with the meeting. And our ITS staff is working on fixing the video in the background.
Okay, thank you. So I think that means if you speak, and this is Amy Smith, the chair, identify yourself with your comments, please. All right. Any other comments on the open space amendment? So we'll keep the working group going and hopefully have a report back by next time. All righty. Next on the agenda is 424 Sunset. And Ricky, if you have an update for us.
Yes, good afternoon, Chair. Thank you. Hope everybody's doing well after the holidays. I have been in contact quite a bit over the past couple of weeks with the contractor from the property, and he's been giving me some updated measurements. To say all that, I believe they are over by a few hundred square feet based on the information provided. So it appears that they're going to have to go back to the Board of Adjustment as the board had approved about not quite 5 years ago, about 4.5, 7,350 square feet. I'm getting information around 7,450, 7,500. So it is technically over. It doesn't sound like it's grossly over, although it is a very...
Pause you there, Ricky, for just a sec.
Yes,
just to give some context to this, this is a project that was in the steep slope zone. And so it falls under the grading permits as well as tree removal permit requirements in steep slope, if that's correct. So just want to give everybody a background on that. And the developer was found in violation of their permits. And so the update here is on how the enforcement of the violation is going. Sorry, thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I should have probably gave more. I guess y'all are not living and breathing this every day. Yeah, so just to go back real quickly, maybe for the council reps' benefit, is that there had been a couple landslides back in like 2012 and 2015 that caused slope failure, and which basically utilized the allowed grading for the Zone B of this lot. So basically the failures and remediation consumed that allowance. So in the summer of 2016, they applied for a variance to grade an additional 7,350, but actually on the top part of the slope, actually off Sunset, which based on the geology report said that was the most stable area. It was above the old logging road bench. And so the board did grant that. So it's 7,350 square feet over and above what would normally be allowed for Zone B. So the landslide area is clearly very obvious, and that's kind of grown over with brambles. So that's not the area that may have been redisturbed, but that was okay to do utility. This is the area that's on the top end of the property off Sunset, sort of the actual house seat. So that's what the board had allowed about 4.5 years ago, is the 7,350. And so the contractors went out there and remeasured everything, and it does seem to be kind of coming close to what some of our enforcement grading staff had also found. They had found about 8,000 square feet of land disturbance, and the contractors tell me about 7,500. but in any case, is over the allowance. So if you're a square foot over, you're over the variance. So you've basically caused a violation. And Chair, I'll let you recognize the hands that were raised.
Yeah, go ahead, Sharon, with a question.
Hey, Ricky. So I got a couple issues. On Excella, they're showing that the notice of violation is closed. On the, when I sent an email to Monty about the trees that were removed where the utility trench was. And it says, and then Monty responded that the arborist report said that those trees were dead, but the arborist report didn't say that. The arborist report said that one of the trees was dead and two others just needed pruning and watching, but they removed the trees anyway at the bottom to put in their utility trench. So, okay, so they did that. And then my thing is that they removed them. That doesn't make it okay for them to overseed it with lawn seed and not replant any trees on either side of the trench where they can get and replant, because they did remove them. And I did read the arborist report. Unless there was a new arborist report that wasn't submitted on Excella, the arborist report was a couple years old. Maybe 3 years old. I can't remember now. I have it all printed. So that was one of my issues with it. And then another of my issues is I can't figure out how many more trees they're going to replace with the ones that were removed, being on a steep slope B. And because the plan that's submitted doesn't say on the reparations of how many were removed, because there were several removed that are not being asked to be replanted. The only ones that are asking to be replaced are what was for the original design of the new owners. So we've got the old owner stuff that transferred over to the new owner. And then the new owner went and picked the tree, and then the notice of violation that's only on Excella is closed out due to the fact that the arborist report didn't say that those trees were dead that they had removed.
Okay. All right. So Sharon, I probably made an error before. I don't know if it was before a holiday or what, but I did actually send a separate notice of violation regarding grading at the house site on the uphill side.
I figured you did, and I figured with the backlog, everything, I was giving you a break and not sending you one of my many, many emails to you of where is it, because I figured you'd already had done that. But what's going on? I know, I figured you did. That's why I didn't bug you. But what's going on with me is I get neighbors asking me, the only way I know is to get on Excella and look to see what's going on. And so then I tell the people to contact me. It's in the works, and as soon as we have a UFC meeting, I'll find out, or I can find out beforehand, because I know I can always email you. Right now, the problem is with the quantity of, other than the amount of grading, and I'm hoping you don't take the contractor's word for what they're saying. And the city goes out and the inspector actually measures whether it's 200 square feet over or 500 square feet over. I mean, I'm thinking that you would probably do that and not take their word for it.
Yeah, we'll need more information, but it sounds like at this point they're pulling the trigger for a Board of Adjustment action to be revisited. So we'll have to have some much more quality information submitted for the board itself, as opposed to some hand measuring. But we're definitely at a trigger, and I've just emailed them back today, say, are we understanding this is like 7460, or what are we on a final total? But I haven't, but I did tell them that it appears to be a Board of Adjustment requirement that we're going to go back.
Are they going to be required to redo the plan, because that plan that's submitted now is, I don't know, 3 years old maybe?
Well, I mean, they'll be reopening basically, it's not reopening the case, but they'll basically have to, in lack of a better term, revisit the variance, and it's possible that they could grant it. They could grant it and require additional conditions, and that could be more tree planting or some other mitigation as part of their variance if they grant it. The board may also deny it. I can't, you know.
Yeah, I'm aware. What about the trees that they removed that the city said that they closed that out because they said the trees were dead when that's not what the arborist report says? An arborist report is filed on Excella, so you can read it. Now that, again, that's kind of like the problem we have over here. Once it's out and done, you know.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
know when it first started up, Sharon, that I did go out to the site, and there was one or two trees that were dead, and I told them they should, and one was fairly close, and one was an ash tree, and I told them we need to document that dead tree before we have people living in the house. But I don't know if that's the tree they're enumerating in the report. But yeah, and I did see some evergreens planted on the site that were part of the original variance, because there was some tree, I think about 10 trees required to be replanted as part of the variance around the property, but they seem to be like an evergreen in nature. So I don't know if they were white pines or what they were, but they seem to be some sort of evergreen, and maybe even some they weren't hemlocks, maybe they were spruce or Fraser, but I wasn't sure with that elevation, tell you the truth, if that would work there as well. But
Well, according to the neighbors and arborist report, there were hardwoods. So, but, and then it brings up my stormwater problem that I have continually is, why is it okay to take out trees and shrubs and then and then repair it with just seed? And so then you get this, I mean, I've got it over on the property that I'm dealing with where all these trees come out, and then the reparations on it is just to throw some seed down and be done with it. And I mean, when you go out and take a look at it, it looks like a water slide. You know, it's right in the middle, and it's huge because it's steep slope B. And there should, I mean, I know that that's another thing that we have to look at changing, but for sure, this arborist report said these trees shouldn't have come out, and they did. And I'm saying that we need to add some more trees in that area if they remove those trees, and they shouldn't come out. The evergreens, I know, are part of the land clearing. This is this is on the first notice of violation.
yes, ma'am. I was just saying that what I've seen replanted out there, I'd seen some replanted evergreens is what I've seen replanted.
So, I mean, is there any way to go back on that original notice of violation and correct it? I mean, once the city clears it out, it's done. I mean, it's pretty well settled if they've closed it.
Let me talk to our management team a little bit further about that. I don't want to say, but we might, I'd say once we've closed, we probably have to reissue a notice of violation as opposed to reopening it.
I have an email trail to Monty with it where I said all of this, and then it got closed anyway without a response to me. But so if you could let me know, that would be good. And thank you for keeping up with this.
Yes, ma'am. And Chair, I believe you had one other person had a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I did earlier on. Just to be clear, this isn't the property on Sunset Drive, on Sunset, that we deliberated later last year.
No, that was Sunset Summit. This is on Sunset Drive. They're separate. Yeah,
Well,
this one is older.
This one is under new business though, and old business, and it's the first I heard of this.
Well, it's extremely old business.
Okay.
So we put it back.
Historic business.
Yeah, no, nothing new, so to speak, on Sunset Summit. That's that more recent project.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Go ahead, Patrick.
Ricky, if this goes back to the Board of Adjustments, does the staff make a recommendation on what the developer asks for?
We've not been making recommendations on any variances over the past 3 or 4 years. We've just leave it to the applicant to make the case, but we'll be obviously re-advertising, posting the property, and notifying all the property owners within a 200-foot radius of the property boundary. So that said, we'll be giving the history of what's occurred. Obviously, go back. I actually wrote the report back in 2016, so I'll probably pick that up and include a lot of the past 6 months of history in an amended board report or updated board report. And obviously there might be some options that come up with the board. I don't know. They may ask for some guidance during the staff during the hearing. I'm not sure, and I'm sure we may hear from a neighbor or two as part of that. And hopefully we would have this case sooner than later. And obviously we're still a virtual meeting, so and it's open to the public, so that means not saying, but somebody from this commission can call in too, or voice some concerns. Not saying you have to, but that is obviously a public meeting, and anybody can voice that concern or recommendation or thoughts.
So, Madam Chair, if this case does go back to the Board of Adjustments, would it be appropriate for the commission to write a statement or make a recommendation to the board on this project?
I don't know. I'd have to get clarification on that. I assume we can, but we'll find out about that. But I definitely think we should keep this somewhat open and look for updates from Ricky. And yeah, we can see if that is appropriate for us as a group to do that. So I'll find out about that.
Thank you.
All right, Board of Adjustments. Okay. Any other comment or question on this project? All right. Since we are so close to our agenda timeline, is anyone in opposition to a very quick 2-minute break? Is that okay with everybody? I need just like 2 minutes, and we will meet back at, how about 4:40? Meet back here. So thank you. 2 minutes break. All right, everyone. I have 4:40. So if we are back. All right. Looked like that break went over well. So thanks, everybody. All right. Looks like we're back. Okay. Well, then we're going to go ahead and move on to new business. All right. So first up in new business, most of us know that on our roster of official members of the commission are ex officio members, voting members from Greenworks, MSD, and Duke. And in the ordinance, it's actually so old that they are misnamed, a couple of those. So what we're wondering, or just to put up for discussion, is do we want to make or try to make some ordinance changes to those members if they're not going to attend in person? So we know we have really good representation from Greenworks, and Don, we appreciate you being here and voting and discussing with us. But we have not seen in my 3 years here ever anyone from MSD, and only maybe twice in my 3 years on the commission, the representative from Duke. Duke does a great job of sending us their updates, you know, where are they doing tree trimming and things like that, which is great. We can continue to ask for that. But I just don't see a lot of reason to have them on the roster officially if they're not going to be here. So does anyone else have comments or suggestions on this topic?
I agree. We need to revamp, because I had that problem as chair, wondering, you know, what to do about attendance. You know, they do count. Well, at least my understanding, the Duke person counted as a voting member in Greenworks. Not so much MSD, but we do need their involvement, particularly MSD, and which has been missing in action for a long time, and Duke as appropriate.
Yeah, I agree that it would be ideal if they were all at the table, but if they're not going to be here. So as a first step, I've been talking to Ben and others about reaching out and seeing if we can build that relationship and get someone to attend the meeting, because it would be super helpful, particularly with alternative compliance and other issues that we have, if we had that knowledge that they could bring. But if it's just never going to happen, do we want to work on, you know, possibly changing the ordinance so it's not in there any longer? Now, one thing to consider, and Nancy might have some more on this, excuse me, is if we do rewrite the ordinance, we'd have to take a look at whether we have to throw out all 3 of those positions, pardon me, or if we're able to keep on, you know, for example, Greenworks, who's actually here. So I don't know, Nancy, if you had any more information on that.
No, I mean, I don't. I would look to Ben and Eric.
You know, Amy, one thing I would consider though is if we are going to make changes, that we think it through a little bit more thoroughly. For example, maybe keep the seats, but don't identify them as MSD or Duke, which will allow us to bring more people onto the commission, which would better enable us to stagger in a way that would provide for succession planning, which was another agenda item that we have. So it's that kind of thinking, I think, that we should put into this to really identify our needs and what we want to look like if we're going to mess with it at all.
I agree. Ben, did you have something? Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. I was just gonna, and I think that makes sense, Ed, is just like working through this, but I will confirm that the way I read the ordinance, the Carolina Progress Energy or Duke Energy, Greenworks, and they were called something else in the ordinance, and MSD are voting members of the Tree Commission or the Urban Forestry Commission. Then additionally, it gives the Director of Public Works the authority to appoint additional non-voting ex officio member. So right now, MSD is a voting member of the Urban Forestry Commission, as well as Greenworks and Duke Energy. I don't have a strong preference, but I would say this to reiterate what you said, Madam Chair, is if those three entities, and Don Chavez does a great job of participating, but if those three entities are in fact voting members, then we need to reach out to them and they need to start attending meetings.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. And Ed, to your point, I definitely don't think this is something we're going to rush into. This is our first blush at talking through it. And, you know, I'm open, I think as we all are, to any sort of arrangement that would keep people here, people with ideas and insights and expertise. Right now it states in the ordinance that the commission is 7 members plus the 3 additional ex officio positions. So again, if it's something that we look into as far as what we're able to alter there, then we could look at how that changes. But we do need to, regardless of how we change it, there are errors in the wording of the ordinance, you know, as far as updates with the name of the commission and these other entities. So we do need to do something. So at this point, I just wanted to bring it up that our first step is going to be outreach to see if we can get these, especially the utilities, to join us. And if that is unsuccessful, then we'll have to look at plan B, being to rewrite that to not include them if they're not going to be here. So any other comments? Or yeah, go ahead, Perrin.
Thank you. So I just want to say, in a vacuum, it seems like getting rid of absentee members, or the requirement of accommodating absentee members who don't participate, is preferable, because they can always show up to the meeting and come provide Duke's perspective or MSD's perspective as a meeting participant that's not necessarily a voting member. So there's no harm done, you know, all other things being equal, there's no harm done there. On the flip side, one thing that you brought to mind for me, Amy, is that the quorum issues. This is very interesting. If we have 10 voting members, it's not 5 for a quorum, it's 6 for a quorum, which is really significant to the committee in a couple of different ways. One is how many members we need present to hold a meeting. 6, given that we usually have 7 or 8 present, you know, that doesn't leave us a lot of wiggle room to, in order to achieve a quorum, to hold a meeting and conduct business. Secondly, there's an advantage in the sense that if the quorum is 6 and not 5, that gives us more flexibility in conversations between meetings and what have you. So there are multiple considerations to sort of vet as we're thinking about how we want to handle this.
Yes, thank you, Perrin. And I've been thinking about the quorum issues as well. I don't know, again, I'm not savvy enough about what the difference with ex officio and others, if that counts toward the quorum or not. So I agree that we have to take all of this into consideration. And yeah, I don't know if at this point we want to have a working group. I think we can wait until our retreat possibly and dive into this more, if that's okay with everyone. I just at this point wanted to bring it up so that we can start talking about what everything will entail. So
yeah, I think all voting members would count toward the quorum from a legal standpoint. But we had previously looked at MSD, maybe incorrectly, is not the same. Maybe because they're non-participation for a number of years, and that was the tradition we took, but perhaps incorrectly. So we need to start afresh and figure out what the appropriate role is.
Go ahead, Patrick. Or
yeah,
Patrick and then Mark.
Yeah, I've already done a draft of revisions for Chapter 2 administration, and I forget what the section is, but the one that deals with the tree commission as it's now stated. So I've already put together a proposed amendment for that section of Chapter 2.
Okay, thank you. Maybe you could send that to me and we can start kind of taking a look at it. Thank you. And Mark?
Oh, thanks, Amy. It's definitely been a long time since MSD had a visitor on this board. I've been participating on it for 23 years now, and I've only seen an MSD person twice, I think. And that was when they were invited to come back after being gone for a long time. I don't think they maybe have a strong sense of need to participate, even though sewer lines and tree roots can definitely conflict with each other in the, at the same space at the same time. Duke Energy, though, previously Carolina Power and Light, previously Progress Energy, and then Carolina Power and Light before that, they have a huge impact on trees along rights of way, along private properties. And so I wouldn't think that abandoning contact with them or their full participation in the board would be a good idea. I agree with Ben that maybe trying to woo them back would be a good thing. Duke spends a lot of money every year buying small trees so that they don't get into conflict with power lines. And so just if nothing else, because of that contribution, making a good faith effort to restore the relationship that in all candor kind of deteriorated during a meeting when there was a very adversarial relationship between the board and Duke's representative. And then he didn't show up for a long time after that. I felt his pain on that. So I think rebuilding that bridge would be worthwhile.
Thank you, Mark, for your historic input. That's great.
You're welcome.
I was going to echo what Cecil just said. Yeah, thank you, because I know I wasn't here at that time and some of the rest of us. And I agree that ideally these people would be here because what they do does impact what we do and vice versa. So one question that, Ben and I were talking about is, do we have the correct representative from these groups as who is signed up to be here? And maybe through this outreach, we could find a better person, a liaison that would have those interests in mind. So great discussion. Thank you, everybody. Anything else? All right, well then I'm gonna keep working on that as part of my duties, is seeing how we can do that outreach and see where we go. And if anyone has any other relationships already, reach out to me and we can see if we can build that back up. And then short of that, then we'll look at revising the ordinance. So. All right. Next, we have partnerships with the county to address development and canopy preservation. And I know this is really big right now, is particularly with two developments that are abutting the city of Asheville, particularly the Crossroads development and the River Bluffs. I may have that name incorrect, but in Woodfin. So right now I'm just opening it up for discussion. What do we think as a commission that we can do to build relationships, to address these issues, to have involvement or a seat at the table with the county and some of their development issues and perceived, at least, possibly true, lack of canopy protection? So anybody want to kick it off?
Yeah, Amy, the Tree Protection Task Force discussed this with their meeting last week. And we're probably going to have a lot more discussion around this topic. A couple of thoughts were to, one, make presentations to elected officials, not only about urban forestry, but about tree ordinances and tree protection on construction site. It's not at all uncommon for county governments to have tree ordinances for those unincorporated areas. And then the second thing is to work with folks in Buncombe County to establish an urban forestry commission. It's going to require the Tree Protection Task Force to bring folks in from the county, because I believe everybody that attends the meeting, or most everybody, lives within city limits. But I believe those are two steps that group is going to take within the next year.
Excellent. And I believe all of us who live right in Asheville also are part of Buncombe County, so we do have some standing there as well. So, but I agree with that. Working with our partners through the nonprofit Asheville Greenworks and the Tree Protection Task Force is definitely a good way to go. Any other thoughts and ideas on this? How we can try to build those bridges? I know we're thinking about it. I see the wheels spinning. I know we all want to make this happen. Go ahead, Perrin.
I would just throw in there that in conversations with the county about this, it would be helpful. I think it would be helpful for us to reinforce a message that's been a theme throughout the Crossroads fight, as well as others, which is that the process of collecting public input on changes or variances that come before the Board of Adjustment are not accessible to ordinary citizens, and helping, if we can help put our hand on that lever to push for a more accessible and transparent process that everyday people can participate in without having to hire an attorney, I think that would benefit the outcomes in Buncombe County on these development projects and help the folks who are on the Board of Adjustment and other decision-making bodies. If there is an urban forestry commission for the county that's created, or whoever ends up receiving that comment, would help them to receive more full and complete comments from the public.
That's a great point. I saw a couple other people. Go ahead, Dawn.
Yeah, Asheville Greenworks has been talking to folks in the county government and on staff at the county for years now, and trying to figure out what, if any, protections there were for trees, which there aren't any. And we, about a year ago, I think it was, Nate Pennington from the county was talking about starting a strategic planning process for the county, and was interested in including urban forestry in that, and tree canopy in that, and looking for advice. I don't know what the timeline is on getting that rolling, but we're trying to keep up to date with what's going on, and we'll continue pushing. You know, I've met with a couple of commissioners and talked to them about the need for some sort of organization around tree protection and canopy preservation at the county level as well. So I'll keep you all posted.
Thank you. Patrick, go ahead.
To Perrin, to your point, the Coalition of Asheville Neighborhoods is going to take up the very things that you discussed at its board meeting next week. So I'll keep you informed.
Thanks, Patrick. That's great. That actually brings up, oh, sorry, Perrin, if you had, but it brings up actually another piece of the puzzle is not only the collaborations with the county, but also across boards and commissions. And this is something we'll continue to talk about. I don't think, yes, I don't even have it on the agenda, but it can fall within here as well, that building these relationships everywhere we can, so that all of these projects and concerns have the backing and education and whatever we can address as far as canopy. One idea I had that we'll get to when we talk about a retreat was to invite whoever we can get from the county, commissioners and otherwise, to our retreat to start that dialogue and have them at the table with us, hopefully. So that was one other idea.
I'd like to see other commissions represented too.
Yes.
We did that last time. Last time we were able to have a retreat. We had two people from SACE there, and coordinated with them the best we could. I think we should continue that tradition as much as possible. A couple of commissions at least that, you know, have some strong relationship with our commission.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that'll be part of this as well. Any other ideas for county involvement at this point? All right. Well, I think, again, this is something that we keep open and discussing. Yeah, we don't want to let it go away. So we want to be able to educate everyone as far as what we can help with and how we can, you know, work to preserve more trees. So, all right. Next, we want to talk about the Historic Commission with landscape plans and the UFC. So this came up through a neighbor issue with a project in Montford. It's a single family residential project that did not fall under the tree protection ordinance, but did fall under the Historic Commission overlay for that area with their tree preservation. And again, this is just to start the dialogue on how might this group be set up to either help or possibly take on part of what the Historic Resource Commission does with their tree work when one of these projects falls in their lap. So again, this is just the start of a conversation. So if I see Sharon has something, we can take more comments. Go ahead, Sharon.
This was the project that Ed, Steve, and I walked the property with the hemlocks that were the boundary trees. And what they did is they put up tree protection fencing, but they went in and they cut down a lot of trees, as we know they were going to do, and they just left them on the ground. And they didn't clean them up, and they sat on the ground for a long time, and the neighbor thought that they were never going to clean it up. Part of the fencing got knocked down, part of the fencing was up. And so, I went and I spoke at that commission meeting. Each historic commission, historic neighborhood has got their own rules and regulations. So everyone's different. So when I go before the commission to talk about a particular development, I have to make sure within the rules of the historic resource that they're in. And in this one, the owners and the arborists said that they would tree protect fence, that they would keep the area clean, and that they would abide by protection. So that brings up for me what I think is a cleaned up area of trees falling on the ground and laying up against the root balls, and is different than the person that's actually doing the work. So I'm finding that when the email got sent to the owners, they thought it was just fine, as did the arborist. But as far as I was concerned, it wasn't fine at all. So my expectations of what the property should look like and expectations of the arborists and the owners were two different things. Tree protection fencing, well, it kind of fell down. We just didn't put it up in that area. You know, we forgot to put it back up, and we're going to go back in and clean it up later. So I'm finding it's, again, how I do a job and how someone else does a job are two different things. My expectations are way higher. So that's my take on that.
Thank you. Go ahead, Ed.
Yeah, part of this discussion is also around the protected status of a protected class of trees, similar to heritage trees. And evidently there's some language that does define historic trees in the city of Asheville, giving the Historic Commission the responsibility for nominating and designating them as historic trees. Although that hasn't happened in a as far as I know, decades, if at all. And so one question that we have, and this came out of the Tree Protection Task Force again, is if we work with the Historic Commission to establish criteria for designating what a historic tree is, and then take on the responsibility of nominating and designating that from the Historic Commission, we could probably start generating a special protected class of trees in the city. So, and I think, I've never met with the Historic Commission. I don't know how agreeable they would be to work with us on this, but I think it would be a good project.
I agree. Sharon, go ahead.
Yeah, they're very, when I went and spoke twice to them, they're very agreeable on saving trees. They're very concerned about what's going on in the neighborhoods. So they would, I would say, would be very much willing to work with us.
Yeah. Also, the Preservation Society, which is different than the Historic Commission a bit, but I'm a member of that group. I'm not as active as I'd like to be, but they would have some influence as well. So that I had reached out to them a couple of years ago and tried to get an understanding of what we were dealing with, but yeah, we need to continue that and make sure that we can move forward. I think is a good approach, and I agree with Ed. I think we have the opportunity to create something that be meaningful.
Awesome. Thank you. So I don't know, what do you guys think maybe about setting up a working group to work on creating a partnership, or at least start the dialogue with the Historic Resource Commission and possibly other entities? Would anybody else be interested in such a thing? I'm happy to take it on, but if anybody wanted to work with me on that, we could start that process.
I'd be happy to.
All right. Anyone else?
Yeah, I will, Amy, but I almost think that we should probably wait until our planning retreat to see what else is on the table so we could allocate our resources most appropriately.
Good idea. Thank you. All right. Well, I'll keep your guys' names down if anyone else wants to jump in. But yeah, I definitely think we can revisit this at our retreat and make sure that it fits with our current timeline and priorities as well. So any other comments? All right. Thank you. Okay. So our retreat, that is next. So we have the green light to have a retreat. The key is going to be timing, because obviously we're going to have a virtual retreat, which will require city staff to be here. And obviously we want to make sure it's long enough to get through, some presentations and discussion and planning. So the key here is going to be timing and availability. So Nancy, did you have anything on this to start off? Okay. So, I don't know how we want to try to organize this. I know in the past we've all just kind of opened our calendars and said, I'm available on, this day. So we can do something like that, or I could send out a scheduling poll if that would work. We're just going to have to come up with what's going to be the best for the most people. It'll have to be an afternoon, I'm thinking, like a 1 to 5 sort of timing to be able to accommodate the city staff. So any other comments, questions, ideas?
I like the idea of a scheduling poll. I think that's the best way to do that.
Okay. And then as far as agenda, I've talked to several people about ideas for the retreat, bringing in speakers, as we mentioned, maybe somebody from the county, other boards and commissions. I don't have to have my other notes of who we wanted. I think that was most of what we were looking for. And then obviously leaving enough time for planning and prioritizing as well. Yeah, Patrick?
Yeah, we had discussed about bringing in an urban forester from one of the other cities in North Carolina to, discuss with that, their program and, how we can put together one here.
Yes, thank you. That was the other idea. An urban forester, ideally from a city, close to the size and resources of Asheville, so we can get an idea of what they do and how it benefits their city and their program. And that way, if that is an ask of city council, then we have more information and education to bring to our cause. So that was another idea. If anyone has other ideas or requests for the meeting, obviously we can take those. Those were just some of the ideas we had so far. Obviously, it's going to come down to who's going to be able to attend at whatever time we figure out that we can be there. So any other thoughts?
Yeah, because I live in the weeds, I've been really wondering what SACY's doing on this, if they're doing anything on the stormwater ordinance that they're working on. I'd be interested to get a report from someone that's working on that change of that ordinance, where they are, if they're working on it. Just because it impacts so much of what we do, but I don't know if they're doing anything. I know they have a subcommittee.
I did not make it to their last meeting, so I'm not sure where they're at, but and unfortunately they're not meeting regularly right now, but let me reach out and just see if we can at least get an update on that. And they will definitely be invited to our retreat. Stacy obviously has a lot of overlap with us. So we'll see what we can find out. So as far as timing, my hope would be to have our retreat either before, ideally, our next regular commission meeting in February. That might be pushing it a little fast, so it might have to be toward the end of February, possibly even the beginning of March. But if anyone else has thoughts on that, I would really like to do it as soon as possible, but we'll have to coordinate all these schedules. So any other ideas? All right, well, I'll just send out a scheduling poll. Kim, did you have something? Was that your hand raised? Okay, just fixing your hair. All right. Well, then I'll get in touch with everybody and send out a poll. And if in the meantime anything comes to mind, feel free to reach out and send that to me. Any other thoughts on the retreat yet? All right. Okay, next we're going to talk about TRC and the pre-application meetings. So Sharon, our wonderful TRC rep, does so much work with TRC, and yet she's ready to do more, which is amazing. So thank you, Sharon. So what happened was Sharon was invited to a pre-application meeting, which is a project that has not yet applied for regular permitting. They can request what's called a pre-application meeting to sit down with development services and other parties to basically hash out what they are potentially getting into with a development project. And Sharon was recently at the Charlotte Street project. It was pre-application, so this has not been applied yet. We don't have public-facing details on that project yet. But what this brought up was what kinds of projects should the Urban Forestry Commission be in on at that early stage? We know that as far as anything with environmental planning, the earlier that these issues are brought up, the better they can be planned for. And so the idea is that if the Urban Forestry Commission can be at the table sooner, then the developers aren't caught off guard. We're not getting development plans too late to have an input on them. So that's the goal, would be to have our seat at the table sooner than later to address these issues. And Sharon has said she's willing to go to the table for us, to go to these pre-application meetings. They're set at a set time. They have a scheduled time that they're always held. So she said she would be able to do that. But the question for this group is, and for Sharon, is do we want to try to be at every pre-application meeting, or should we set up a set of criteria that would initiate the Urban Forestry Commission to be involved in these meetings? So Sharon, I'll probably take your thoughts first, whatever you're thinking on pre-app meetings.
This is what I'm finding on the larger pre-application meetings, and I know there's smaller developments. What I'm finding is because I've been in the construction business a long time. If I'm going to go take a piece of property and I'm going to go look at something I want to do with it, I am going to bring in people in, and I'm going to get the engineer on, and I'm going to get the architect on. And even though I'm not submitting my plans to the city yet, I've got an idea of what I'm looking at for my cost, for my development. And what I'm finding when I'm talking to in a pre-application or in a neighborhood meeting with developers that come in, they'll always say, we're gonna save a bunch of trees. And yet there's no report from anybody stating whether those trees can be saved. Ed and I walked the property, and they're very old trees on it. The development on Charlotte Street is going to pretty well kill every tree that's existing. But the developers came into a neighborhood meeting, and they also stated at the pre-application meeting that they were going to save a bunch of trees. So it's really great with the sweep of the arm, and they may want to save a bunch of trees, and they may be able to save a bunch of trees, but without having an arborist report up front that they can, that for me is a sweeping generalization, and it's kind of making it sound like that they want to do this. Like they'll make statements like, we're going to do for stormwater rain gardens, and then I'll question them all the way down on a development for a year. Well, what do these rain gardens look like, knowing they can't do rain gardens, but they want to do rain gardens. And at the very end of the design, when it's all done, there are no rain gardens. Now, they may want to do that, but I'm finding for me that if you're really wanting to do this, then present to me arborist report shows that you really are trying to save these trees and not wait till 6 months later or however long to the final CZ process or whatever it is to see that they really can't do that. And to tell you the truth, I feel like they're just blowing smoke up my dress. So that is my take on it. But I also know on the pre-application that it's a quick process. It's a give and take, and not to be for the general public. And I keep my mouth shut because I can keep my mouth shut, believe it or not. And that a lot of this is just the discussion process. But for me, if you want to save trees and you're thinking about it, and I'd really like to see how it is that you plan on doing that, and not just tell me you're going to do it.
You know, this really speaks to the need, once again, to have a professional urban forester on staff instead of having a volunteer do this work.
Yeah, thank you, Ed. That's a really good point. I totally agree. Chris Collins.
Hey, sorry, I'm slow with the mute button today. So I just kind of, before y'all have this conversation or think about how you want to set the stage on this, I just kind of want to first kind of make sure everybody understands the types of developments we see in TRC. There are, of course, the big ones that we all hear about, the conditional zonings that go through planning and zoning, through council and all that. And there are a lot of negotiating points there where a developer can come and say, well, I'm going to save these trees, and we can actually hold them to that on that type of development, right? That goes through council, conditional zoning has conditions and all that. So we do have a good bit of our developments that go through that way. And Sharon's totally familiar with these because they go through TRC, they go through P&Z, they go through city council, they go back to TRC, and 300 days later, they're building something. It's a long process, and there's a lot of points in there. The other thing we look at are what we call by right developments by zoning. And those are our level 1s, our level 2s. And level 2s and major subdivisions also have pre-apps. But the important distinction is we aren't legally able to, even if they come in and say, we're going to save this tree, if the code doesn't require it, we can't hold them to that, right? So the idea here is that those level 2s, major subdivisions, are going to be taken care of by the Article 19, by the tree canopy standards. There's going to be some required canopy preservation, enhancement, planting, whatever they do with it on those. So I'm not sure. And the other point to make, just out of like the nuts and bolts of these pre-app meetings, right now they're only city staff members in those meetings who are doing the technical review on the plans, so minimum ordinance standards. And we do run it's hard to get through everything in those meetings. So I'm open to exploring other ideas. I just want to give you guys kind of the landscape of it. Those conditional zoning applications, I think there's a little more, a bigger role for UFC to play in for advocating for trees and advocating for those trees to actually be spelled out in proposed conditions when they go through the approval process. So I just wanted to kind of lay out the difference between those two types of pre-apps we have as y'all kind of decide how you'd like to try and participate in this process.
Thank you, Chris. Go ahead, Ed.
Yeah, my experience is that these discussions in the preliminary stage of a project is critically important for tree protection. And 9 times out of 10, when builders and developers say they want to save trees and they end up not doing it, it's because of a technical breakdown somewhere along the process. And so what these early discussions do is that it creates an overlay between design necessities on the site and the biological limitations of trees. And if you can have those discussions early in the process, you can make some adjustments to whatever design's being presented, and you can also explore opportunities to mitigate potential impact to trees or prevent it. So without having this conversation, we can't have a sincere, we can't accomplish tree protection. It's that critical. It's to be successful, you have to have that conversation in the early part of the process.
Thank you. I agree. And one thing that I see as far as this being beneficial is as far as beneficial to the developer, that down the line, they don't have to be surprised. You know, the goal of this would be to get everything out in the open and, you know, pitch, so to speak, what the best practices will be for tree protection right away, as Ed says, so that it can be part of the plan from the beginning and not something that we see, for example, in alternative compliance, which is often at the end of the project. So I totally agree. So the question is, moving forward, you know, how we want to implement this. My concern is that Sharon is not going to be with us forever, unfortunately. And, you know, how do we make this a process that will fit whoever is in this role? You know, how do we make this something that's sustainable? So I guess in the short term, it'll be conversations, I think, Sharon, between, you know, you and me and the city staff, and trying to just figure out, you know, how do we get us in on where it's appropriate. So any other thoughts and ideas at this point? Yeah, Sharon.
Why wouldn't that be appropriate for a member of the TRC to attend a pre-application? I mean, I understand what Chris is saying on the level 1 and the level 2s, but on the CZs, it's a negotiation all the way around. And it's even having to do like with island sizes, when they already know they're going to be reducing the island sizes in a parking lot. And as Ed and I have talked about, well, you know, we could really avoid some of that, and we could group trees together. We were talking about an Inca village. I mean, it doesn't allow for in the ordinance now. We don't necessarily have to have tree islands in every area. We could group a bunch of trees together and take and create different ways of thinking other than such our linear thinking that we have now. And it would avoid our problem with tree island reduction, which automatically, when some places just automatically reduce the tree islands regardless. So it's the realistic aspect of dealing with developers and our ordinances they state, and getting the knowledge that we can protect trees with more conversation. So I don't see why UFC, whether it's me or anybody else, shouldn't be part of the pre-application conversation, period.
Well, and I think we agree. I think the question is exactly which projects, you know, and how to make this manageable. But go ahead, Ed, if you had something else.
No, I was going to say, again, ultimately, if we had a professional urban forester on staff, these conversations would happen. So I have to keep driving that point, because that's what many cities do. I mean, that's how they handle this. So the other point is that this discussion should be part of our succession planning, because we can't expect Sharon to do this forever.
Yeah, absolutely agree. So in the short term, like I said, let's keep it going as far as this conversation. So Sharon, you and I and Ben and Chris, let's just keep talking and see how we can get our representative in there where we think it's going to be most helpful. Go ahead, Chris.
Just one closing comment from me on that, Sharon. In the meantime, let's talk offline and figure out how to plug you in when you see something pop up. Okay.
Thank you.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you, everybody. All right. So next, you hopefully all received an email from Nancy about a possible new meeting date and time. In particular, our staff or our council liaison, Kim, won't be able to make very many of our Monday afternoon evening meetings, and I think it's very important for her to be present whenever possible. So Nancy, what did you find out so far about the meeting date and time?
Okay. So I think what it came down to, I think, and there may be some other options that I didn't put out there. Either the second Monday in the morning or the second Tuesday Tim, correct me if I'm wrong. No, the first Tuesday at 1 works. Yeah. Right? And then there could be other options before noon on Monday or Wednesday. One thing that we do, so we do want to avoid conflicts with other meetings, particularly some of our partners, like Board of Adjustments uses the same room and the same facility. So Monday afternoon, the fourth Monday is out, TRC staff overlaps and, just makes long days for Sharon and I, Chris. But that's the first and third Mondays that we want to avoid. And then P&Z is Wednesdays at 5, and then Stacy is usually the third Wednesday at 3:30. So that's why I think we were looking at Mondays or Tuesdays. We could do Wednesday.
So you said like possibly a Tuesday afternoon, the first Tuesday of the month. I guess personally, I sent out my availability. So does anybody have any concerns about changing the meeting for this accommodation?
Other than working, other than making a living?
Yeah, I will add that, during one of the things that hopefully we've taken away from what we've learned during COVID is that the importance of recording meetings so that people have access to participate in the conversation, even if they can't attend at the meeting time. I'm committed to reviewing the recordings of the minutes if I can't attend on Mondays. I do want to prioritize this body's work. So thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Kim. Go ahead, Ed.
I prefer the afternoon time slot over the morning time slot. So whatever day you come up with, but this means that we'll probably have to reschedule the tree protection task force as well, because they always like to meet. We always meet a week in advance of the tree commission so that we can incorporate that into the report.
Yeah, that's right. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, I prefer afternoons. It's just, I think, better for most people, but better for me for sure.
Yeah, I like afternoon too. I would love for this meeting to start a bit earlier so that we don't keep people late, especially city staff. I know, Mark, we are working on it, my friend.
Yeah, 1 o'clock is fine. I mean, I like 1 o'clock actually. That's probably better. Yeah.
I'll actually need to leave here in a minute or two. The time clock's calling.
I know. Thank you. So any other discussion? Go ahead, Perrin.
Yeah, just specifically Monday morning would be sort of maximally disruptive to my workflow. So I prefer to not do Monday morning.
Yeah,
Tuesday works.
A lot of people have that same Monday morning thing. Well, then let's tentatively, Nancy, if you want to get together all your notes and let's see if we can do the Tuesday at possibly a 1 p.m. It's sounding like that's somewhat of a consensus, and we'll get it out there. We're not just going to change it willy-nilly, but we'll make sure that it'll work for everybody here. So at this point, let's just take what we have here and see if we can narrow that down, Nancy, and get it back out for a confirmation.
I will do that.
Awesome. Perfect. Anything else?
Oh.
Thanks, Mark. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
The other thing that we will work that will adjust is that we will also look at adjusting the alternative compliance due dates and things. And the goal is to get the staff reports to you guys a week in advance. So that's we're going to go with that staff report due the Monday before, the Monday week before the, if we would change it to Tuesday, before the Tuesday, so that they get to you guys a week in advance.
Yes.
With reports and everything. The packages will come in beforehand.
Yeah. So the goal with this, the goal with the change would be to do it once, yes, because it does have a ripple effect. So, but I do think, and we've talked about this before, getting this meeting earlier in the day, because we know that it's not a
1 hour or even a 1.5 hour meeting. So that'd be great. Okay. Anything else? Okay. Lastly, rules and procedures manual. This is pretty quick. I'll go ahead and start it off, Nancy. So Ben actually brought this up to me that other than the brief training that most commission members get, if they're lucky, on how to have a commission meeting, there's no other guidance. And so he asked me if I would want to help put together a rules and procedures manual specifically for the Urban Forestry Commission. The goal is to just put in writing, well, for everyone and especially new members, how does this work? You know, what would you expect? How our meetings run? How do we organize working groups versus subcommittees and all of this, and just to write it out. And we're getting some templates to put that together. So, you know, we're not starting completely from scratch. So at this point, it was just to let everybody know that we're going to be putting that together. And once we have, you know, a draft pretty well along, then we'll get feedback to see if there's anything we're missing. But Nancy, you have anything to add to that? Oh, good point. So Kim was asking if the UFC has been invited to Equity 101 and 201 training. And the answer is yes, right? Did everybody see all the invitations? I've been to both. They're really good. So if you have not yet signed up for those trainings through the city, I definitely recommend it. It's, I don't know, fun and also educational. So really good trainings that the city is offering on equity. Any other comments on the rules and procedures manual or the trainings from the city? All right. So lastly is updates. And one thing I wanted to point out, unfortunately, Mark had to leave. His updates are first on here. We're always so crammed for time that we just say, here's the updates, you know, we're out of here. But I do want to point out that these are on the agenda and they are always open for discussion. So if we need to take time to go through any of these items on the updates as discussion points, we are able to do so. And I would encourage anyone with questions to take the time to ask and comment on any updates. So are there any questions or comments on updates? Maybe if we have an earlier meeting, we'll get some of that discussion. All right. Well, then that is it. I guess we can take a, oh, sorry, go ahead.
One comment, Amy,
yes.
Beyond the updates. I hope you saw that we have a bit of reprieve on the annual report, and we'll be getting to that, but we don't have to have it in by the end of this month.
Yes, I did see that.
I think they're valuable for City Council, but we want to do it, but we don't have to have it in. You know, we don't have the same deadline this year.
Yes, that is true. And so I have already put it off slightly on my calendar, but yes, our annual report will be written and it'll be done before the extended deadline, probably within the next couple weeks. So thank you, Steve. Anything else? All right, well then we have to take a roll call vote to end the meeting. Is there a motion?
Move to adjourn.
I second.
All right, thank you. So Patrick?
Aye.
Stephen?
Aye.
Ed?
Aye. Good evening, everyone.
Sharon?
Aye.
Cecil? Is he around?
Cecil.
And Perrin?
Aye.
Dawn?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Thank you very much, everybody. We have adjourned. See you next month.
Adios.
Thank you. Bye.
Good job, Amy. First meeting.
Thank you.